Hey everyone, you're listening to the Alex Files. I'm Alex.
And I'm also Alex.
And this is episode 14 coming to you from hot California.
Yeah, it's warm. It's warm. You know, we're recording, so the AC units, if we had fans, all that's turned off. So we can get a good audio take, but it is warm.
It is hot.
We're wearing sleeveless shirts.
We're wearing sleeveless shirts. It's a hot mic situation.
Testing. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Hot mic. We're so excited. This has been a big, big week in the world of pop culture. We're coming off of, before we dive into today's episode, we're coming off of a historic day with our Free Britney movement. And we are sad for Britney, but really hopeful, I think.
Yeah, really hopeful that the truth finally being out there, that something will change for her and that freedom for her will be realized, because what we've learned is just straight up physical, mental, and financial abuse, and there's no need for it, and it needs to stop. And I'm just patiently waiting to find out. There's no way. I will be so upset if this conservatorship legally continues.
Right?
So
I know. And I don't know. I think we can both say, as women in our 30s, Britney was an instrumental part of our upbringing and, our culture that kind of surrounded us.
always was my favorite, always will be. Growing up in the 90s and early 2000s and music video culture and pop star, she was always my favorite. I loved it. And it's been so sad to see, the initial spiral, which, fame and paparazzi kind of caused, and then this new trauma of the conservatorship from her father that's just been incredibly intrusive and detrimental. It's wow. So I hope she gets a break and that we can start to see a different side of her true side. Maybe hear her true side through some new tunes. Whatever she wants to give to the world, we're here for it, right?
Yeah, and I will say, as a quick little aside, that I think it was 5 years ago, I saw her perform in Las Vegas at Planet Hollywood. Shout out to a chain restaurant empire. And it was really great. And, I think she had her knee was messed up, but the whole thing, it was they had all her costumes from all her iconic videos in the lobby, which was amazing. And it was
I love
fun.
that.
And all these people were there, and lots of girls had dressed up like her iconic moments from Baby One More Time and all these videos. They had gone kind of dressed up to different Britney themes. But I remember, I don't know how, I think it was on the plane there or on the plane back. My two friends and I ran into someone who was on the flight back to San Diego, and she was actually a backup dancer for Britney in the show. And so it's a little fuzzy because, Las Vegas / less than 24 hours that we were there. But we went up to this woman. I know, enough said. We went to this woman, the backup dancer, and we were like, that was such a great show. We were getting on the plane and we're like, and I remember asking her, I was like, you were so good. But how is Britney? Really? And this backup dancer just smiled and she was like, she's doing really good. And
she's been paid.
And I was like, she probably signed an NDA, but we all knew something was up, and it's just really sad.
There was a vibe. And that was 5 years ago?
Yeah, it was right before I moved up to the Bay Area, and it was in the spring of 2016, I want to say. But was just sad. And yeah, so just wish her well. And that is just an important thing to mention, I think, because yeah, that's what's happening at the moment.
Have you ever seen the Black Mirror with Miley Cyrus?
No.
It's kind of reminding me of this, of just like the person who's the talent and the money and the face and the artist is just being treated like crap by their family and the people who control their wealth. And it's a really cool episode if you like Black Mirror, but it's also
Mm,
really sad, and it makes me think of Britney and also, you know, other celebrities and superstars who have been stuck in this position and, like, you know, have been treated poorly by management and family when things get big.
yeah. I mean, it goes back in time to, I don't know, like so many people, like Judy Garland, and
Ah,
I mean, way, way back. So
yeah.
it's a thing that's been happening for a long time. And yeah, the fact that it's her own family is really, really upsetting. And yeah, I just think that like it's just great that she has finally been able to speak for almost a whole 30 minutes at least and just
And in
word
her own
vomit
voice.
in her own, literally in her own voice that we've never really heard.
Yeah.
So, on that note, we are going to raise our voices today and dive into episode 14, shifting to a timely topic that we've all known and had lots of feelings about, which is the pandemic and the way that people have behaved throughout it, some of our observations and hot takes and takeaways as we sort of as we mentioned in previous episodes are in this kind of transition period.
Oh yeah, it's a wild world out there with no guidelines, no
Yeah.
map, and everyone is just free balling the best they can or not the best they can, which we
We
can get
really
into.
are free balling. Um, what okay, so we're right now, I mean, when this goes live, it'll be July, I think, but it is late June right now. So what's your relationship kind of been like with the pandemic? Like when we kicked off in March of last year?
I don't know, man. There's been a lot on this road. So I'm going to say, if I'm thinking about quick themes, the first one is fear, sadness, and hamster cage, which
Mm,
for the primary, like, part of the pandemic, it was hamster cage and feeling that quarantine and being locked away and isolated. And I am someone who's worked from home for a long time, so I'm used to being here, but I used to go to cafes and other places to work or do things on my off time to better my mental health. And when everything is shut down, even to the point where you can't get necessities at the grocery store, you know, you get this kind of pinned in feeling in the apartment or with the situation. So it's been an up and down kind of accepting that and using that in a way that could benefit me. So through exercise and focusing on things that help my mental and physical health, cooking, art, learning new hobbies, taking time for myself. So there's like an up and down. And obviously, I wish it wouldn't have happened, but there are, I think, good takeaways from my personal experience because I worked hard to like curate that for myself. Well, there was a lot of time where I didn't have the motivation to do that either, and it really sucked, and it sucks on and off every day still now.
yeah.
What about you? Like, how do you feel? Is your relationship as up and down, or do you have like one kind of feeling about it?
No, I was coming off of a year of like intense like work around grief and the loss of my boyfriend Phil. So I felt like January 2020, the 1 year anniversary of his passing, I am like ready to kind of, have this new chapter in my life. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to going to concerts, maybe dating again, whatever that looks like going on trips. And then 2 months later, here we're like, okay, it's time to kind of shelter in place. And there's this pandemic that has been on everyone's radar, but it seems so far away. And
Yeah.
um, I guess, the first one I remember thinking, like, okay, we need to start wearing masks. Well, I remember I have this really old infinity scarf from American Apparel that's like jersey material. And I was like, could I use this as a scarf? And then I was like, I don't know. And then, a good friend's mom tried to do some like homemade masks, and they were in the very like stage one phase where it was like kind of worked. And good thought behind the process. But I remember just feeling like, it was very like every person for themselves at the grocery store in particular, with the whole like,
Yeah.
okay, so go to the store looking for rice, and I still have it. I have like a rice substitute that's like some weird Berkeley non-rice thing that I have not opened, but just sort of being like, okay, this is what I thought I was making for dinner. I guess, well, we're not doing that. So adjusting in that way, like it kind of felt like an adventure, like a fun project. Like, okay, we're getting into like emergency mode, but didn't realize it would be this long. And I think just feeling really angry at first, especially around the fact that I had already had what felt like a lost year. So I was going to have more time that's just
Yeah.
gone. And then also feeling like, yeah, the hamster wheel. Like I felt like a mix of Groundhog Day and like Russian Doll, just like, okay. Or like that movie Palm Springs, like, okay, we're doing it again, like every single day.
Yeah.
And even just getting in the car to like drive around and go nowhere was a good escape, because I mean, going on walks definitely, but just being like, okay, I don't have to be here.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just like if you don't think about it too much, maybe you can handle it and think of it as like a fun adventure, or focus on how we're going to pivot without the resources we needed. I had somebody mail me toilet paper from the East Coast, and
Yeah.
just like but then like I put my mask on sometimes, especially in the beginning of the pandemic, and feeling it against my face kind of reminded me of like how serious the situation is and how scary this is. And someone with a medical phobia, like that really prompted that panic to come out and kind of freak me out momentarily. So practicing like how to compartmentalize the fear to be able to get through this time that was way longer than any of us thought, right? Weeks turned into months, turned into over a year that people haven't been back to school, back to work, movies open. Like it's surreal to say the
Hmm.
least.
It is. And I think a real high point was like when, and now it seems like every part of the year now is like wildfire season in California, unfortunately. But in the
Right?
fall, it was like, oh, there are now fires again, it being in Northern California. And being on high alert for like weeks at a time and being kind of ready to evacuate, where the air was so bad and like the sky was orange and really dense, and having to be like, okay, which mask do I wear? Can I layer my mask? So I have like an N95 with a filter for the ash in the air, and then another one for like a virus. Like, and it was just like so ridiculous. Like, okay, I have two masks on and I have my glasses, which are completely fogged up. So it's like, what's even the point of going outside? I don't know. It
And
was
then
like,
there's
what?
civil unrest and
Oh
protests
yeah,
and necessary movements, but also violence and fear. And I mean, the
yeah.
one safe place maybe became very unsafe in a couple of ways. It's like, damn,
So many
back to the hamster cage.
yeah, and then the unrest, like not only with all the stuff around, not stuff, but all of the everything, activism and movements around George Floyd's murder, but the election. And like there was just, it was like way too much at
And then
once.
the insurrection of
Oh
earlier this year, and
God.
then just like spiraling of things that I still don't feel I've had time to catch up and process. And I don't know when or how to get there as
Same.
I'm continuing to like just try to survive, right? It's not over just because we're
No,
vaccinated
no.
and we can take our mask off maybe. It's not We're going to be feeling these impacts for years to come, and that's like I need to remind myself to allow myself that because things are different. I'm processing things different. And this struggle that I'm having emotionally and physically, it can make sense and it's very valid because we've been through a lot.
Yeah, and like it's so great to be able to see friends and be out, but like being in a movie theater, being at a music festival or a concert, like I think the reality of being in public spaces with a lot of people and then, getting back to this normalcy of like anything could happen at a public event. Like,
Guns, another
yeah,
fear. Welcome to America. But
that
just
is
like
terrifying.
people close to me, I feel like during the pandemic, that's something that I was hyper aware of. Or like anytime somebody coughed, it's like my neck would snap to see who. And
Yes.
like people behind me not doing the 6 feet tiles, and I could kind of feel them and hear them on my shoulder, and that really made me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Um,
It was like the like pre-pandemic when you would like be I don't know how much of this is happening when you're like driving around San Diego, but just the general like man spreading that happens out in the world or if you're on a plane. I feel like that was like the pandemic equivalent was when people would like creep up on you when you're like in line at the grocery store and they're just like not
they don't
aware.
care. And we're
Yeah.
6 months in. We know the tiles. We're all in the long ass line because there's only one direction on each aisle and one door on each building. We're all in this together. No, we're not, because you're up on my butt cheeks. And like, I'm feeling uncomfortable. Do I have the confidence to turn around and ask you to back up? No. But I will tell you, somebody had the confidence to tell me that. Walking into this building where I live, I saw a couple with a very young baby and the carrier and stairs struggling. So I kind of went with my mask to hold the door. And she snapped back and looked and said, "Can you please give us space?" And then let the door smack in my face. I was like, okay, well, now I feel terrible because I'm trying to do my best, and I didn't think that maybe I shouldn't approach. I was just trying to help, and it's like
You're trying to be
people's
like a help.
reaction
Yeah.
has like made me uncomfortable, made me angry, made me
Mhm.
sad.
Yeah. I think that's a good transition to kind of would love to get and maybe that's one of them, like the sort of strangest observations or behaviors that you've noticed about people in the pandemic, whether it's been at the early stages around masking or more recently around vaccinations and just what that looks like.
Wow. Well, as somebody who's kind of a weirdo themselves, it's hard for me to weigh in on what's weird. So when I'm gonna say like behavior, I'm gonna talk about like just behavior I notice. So whether it's weird or not, you can take that for your own. Um, so there's a group of people that seems to be like a sliding spectrum. There's the people
Mhm.
that are, I'm safer than you. I haven't eaten at a restaurant in over a year, not even outdoors when it was allowed. And I sanitize every single grocery item. And then there's the other people who don't wear masks, who are sharing like drinks and posting photos of their friend's birthday party at a bar. The only bar open in PB, breaking the state law.
Oh, PB, what a
So it's like,
garbage time.
where do you fit on that scale? And there's been people who are ignorant, and therefore I feel inconsiderate, not wearing your mask in the height of the pandemic, not giving people space. That's been very irritating. And also just, depleting resources and being selfish and taking more toilet paper and more pasta. I mean, there was nothing. There was no milk, there was no meat, there was no rice, there was no pasta, and there was no toilet paper, no paper towels. It was not a good reflection. So then the flip side is the good behavior that I saw, people helping out, donations of food, um, people volunteering to help keep company, to make Zoom calls for people who are lonely or deliver food, uh, support first responders and essential workers. But then there's also the people treating essential workers like assholes and not giving a tip and being rude when they want them to wear a mask. So I think the main behavior is this debacle about like a mask. Like it's become so politicized. Like you can't take my right. I don't have to wear a mask yet. You don't wear one. You're putting everybody around you at risk. Because when you wear your mask, you're keeping people safe, but it doesn't protect you. So it's kind of shitty that we're relying on everybody else to help take care of each other when there's a lot of people who just straight up won't.
I 100% agree. I think too, because you and I, for work, have to be on social all day, and the types of things we see, maybe, I don't know, maybe it depends, but I think like we can see the worst parts of humanity
The
and parts
absolutely.
where I think, when you live in certain parts, especially in California, like depending on where you are, if you're in a more like intellectual like suburb or neighborhood, like you're seeing, and you're not a social media manager, like you're seeing your people, like you're in this bubble, but like, seeing people post about like, oh, they're trying to like put a mask on us, like what about my body, my choice? And it's like, dude, like you don't even care about women's bodies, and you're some random guy talking about my body, my choice. Like don't try to like spin this language on your whole like I'm not going to wear a mask or like I'm not going to get vaccinated. It's like, what about just like looking out for each other? And
And
I think both of those things are like, it's such a small ask, the fact that people have to be incentivized to get vaccinated in many places is truly mind-blowing to me.
while other places in the world don't even have access to it, and people are
Right?
continuing to die by the hundreds and the thousands. So it speaks to our culture of ignorance and entitlement, and it's a problem.
It's a
Um,
big, big problem. And it's, yeah, I think like what you said about those two extremes, folks who were like, well, this is how many people I've interacted with. And I think it's totally like, I think there's a way of, for people who have anxiety, like it's a way of managing your anxiety, and I get that, and like everyone has to feel it out. But I think there's like on that extreme of like I sanitize every single thing, blah blah blah. There's like a holier than thou aspect,
yeah,
like shaming everyone else. And then on the flip side, it's like I'm not wearing a mask. I'm gonna go like this dude's face, and
and then get coronavirus publicly and have to apologize.
yeah, and like with all these things, especially what we were talking about around like their insurrection, like that was a huge exposure to COVID for so many people who were just going to work on that day in January.
And it's like, heck, it has deadly consequences. And the ignorance of people who believe conspiracy theories about why they think they don't want to get the vaccine or that this virus is made up to control us, it's not only terrifying, it's detrimental and killing people. So that's been tough to navigate when you find those people popping up in your life or around you and you're like, wait, what?
Right?
So some people were surprised that my family, I'm from Maine, right? And I live in San Diego, and they're surprised to find out that my family would not let me visit or visit me until we were all vaccinated. Because that's just what
Hmm.
we were doing. While other families were like, oh, let's get together for Thanksgiving and bring grandma. Like everyone had their own level of what they wanted to do and what they think was appropriate, which
Hmm.
is fine. But I think the problem is when you externalize it and you have those judgmental like, mommy, I'm better than you because I'm a better homeschooler, and you I, just the judgment being externalized is not helpful. Like I can have those judgments, and I did. I thought them. I looked at you at your birthday party and your
Right?
maskless friends, and you're doing this and that and not caring. And I looked at that and I said, maybe I need to reevaluate this interaction and relationship I have with this person. But I didn't say anything. I didn't reach out. It's just like, good to know. You're like that.
Yeah, it was like both ways. Like no matter what anyone did, we judged
You're
each
wrong.
other,
Yeah.
and you're wrong. And there was
Too
a
safe. Not
yeah,
enough safe.
I feel like summer of last year was when people started feeling this like, should I post this to social? Like, but then it
Oh
was
my
the
God.
like
Yeah.
obligatory caption of like, but we're all vaccinated, or we've all been tested, not vaccinated, we've all
Tested.
been like
Yeah.
tested. And yeah, I mean, you and I, we're not moms right now, but like, I think there is an element to all of this of that like mom shaming, which is its own weird subculture of like, oh, like look at what they did. And it's probably been around forever, but now with social media and all that, it's just like exaggerated.
In your face. And it makes you feel bad because it's like on your feed or on your post and it's like, you know, it's really tough, but it's a good way to practice not caring what people think and doing what you think is right. So having to say no to events that you're not comfortable going with can be difficult, but a good practice in setting boundaries, or participating in things you are uncomfortable and justifying that if there's other people who think it's wrong. This is your life. There's been no rule book for the pandemic. You have the information that we all have. You have science. Are you going to be considerate and do your best? Or, so I'm
Yeah.
sure there's people, but I definitely like, people I know and family is like, I thought about like, what am I going to share about what I'm doing in my life based on what they might think is appropriate. And it's just like, I don't need to hear that noise.
Totally. I mean, yeah, I definitely had conversations with my family around like, I don't know, like just being like, I feel like you're gonna like whoever it was coming from, especially if it was me or my siblings like hanging out with friends and our parents, like we were afraid that we were gonna judge each other. And just saying that out loud was, I think, a relief to like know that we were all thinking it. And even just planning
Aw,
future events, like knowing that we all had this like, I don't know, like trying to like be cool about things, but we all had this like underlying like worry and anxiety about
yeah.
everything. And I
Because
guess
it's so
what
unknown.
it's
We
so,
don't
I mean,
know
yeah,
when, how.
we don't know anything. It's like it's not like, it is a threat, but it's not like a fire that you can smell the smoke and you can see it coming. Like it's invisible.
Which makes it even
I
scarier.
know it's very
Like it's a
spooky.
nightmare. And then seeing these like pop-up test sites and the vaccination places taking over parking lots, it feels and is a literal zombie movie
It's
where
apocalyptic.
if
Yeah,
you don't get this, you could kill someone and other people will die. Like here's a public shop. It's like it's
I know.
insane.
I
It's
mean,
insane.
I'm sure you felt this way, but just the idea that, like, oh, I could kill my loved ones and that would,
Terrified.
or get them very sick, like that. I don't think there's enough therapy for that.
No. That's why I stayed my ass here and didn't go to Maine. Put anybody at risk there. Um,
Yeah, I guess, we're still, and we're, you know, ahead of the game in many ways, but there's still a lot that has to happen before we're like fully back out there. I
back
guess
in it.
like back in it in a way. What do you feel like in this moment like you've maybe learned about like yourself from, or just that you've learned from this year, over a year?
I think I've learned that I have discipline in me if I want to. So, being in that hamster cave and really focusing on trying to carve out and establish routines of taking better care of myself physically and mentally and also with self-care. Um, Focusing on that has been really beneficial and I've actually stayed with it, and that the pandemic and the shelter in place really ignited that desire in me to spend my time a little bit more productively than just laying around in existential dread. Um, Another thing is I realize how I want to spend my energy more and what people and events and tasks and projects and hobbies I want to do, because I feel like COVID and the pandemic put everything into perspective. Like, even what do I want out of life? Do I want to focus more on family or a different job, or less time on this hobby and more time on that as my life is shifting? And it's kind of given me the power to realize and say to myself, like, I can let go of these things that aren't serving me anymore. Maybe they're old habits, old friends, old things I used to do, and I'm making room for new intentions. So trying to focus on the positive. Obviously, there's been a lot of struggle, stress, depression, fear, anxiety. Those have been at an all-time high almost always since the last year. Since the last year.
Yeah.
So like, plenty to talk about that. I think a lot of people are in the same boat for a variety of reasons, but I like to focus on like the good, like what did I learn in a good way. So I'm feeling happy about that because now I feel more solidified in what I want and what I don't want, and I don't need to keep doing that, with meetups or things that just aren't serving me.
The mental health part of it, I think that you brought up is interesting because maybe for you and I who are like super comfortable talking about our own anxiety and depression, etc. Like without the pandemic, like we're just like, okay, we'll just like share this thing.
We
But
had it before the pandemic.
yeah, it's always been there, like all these traumatic events, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Not blah, 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 but like we got this. Even when we don't got this, we're like, okay, here it's coming. And I
We'll
think
be
for,
real.
yeah, we're happy to be real, but I think for a lot of people, this was their first time having to face the music of their own mental health. And I
Right.
think it's really been a good thing for maybe the world at large to be like, okay, like we are going to talk about the fact that like this feeling of being very, very lonely and sad, like maybe that's depression. Maybe you need to talk about this with someone, or maybe there's a way for you to like work through it. And I think we still, for those of us that were lucky to still be able to like have our jobs, like you could
Yeah.
distract yourself with that. But yeah, I think being really intentional about like who you wanted to spend time with, even if it was over like a FaceTime, was a real good thing of this. And like, I feel like I cooked a lot more. I certainly
Oh
baked
yeah.
a lot of pies. I really, really dove into the incredible series that is Married at First Sight.
Yes.
It is
90
that.
days.
It's so good.
Tiger King, the early
Tiger
quarantine
King, like it's like what
days.
was that? That was when we were like kids, you know?
That was pandemic kids, panini kids. We were like 4 weeks into it. All the millennials were like, ooh, TikTok. Oh, we're going to download it. Like it was bread baking.
Yeah, that was the early
Yeah,
days.
the early days. And then like 6 months into it, lockdown number 3, you're like, I don't have a reason to put on makeup and that's
Yeah.
fine. And I'm
Like
just
why
going
am
to
I wearing
embrace
pants?
this. Yeah, I'm just going to embrace this. But now that things are opening back up, um, like I think it's exciting. Like I stopped kind of hoping and looking forward to things because there was so ambivalent of a timeline of when that was going to be happening. So I just kept waiting. Like even with the vaccine, I'm just like, I don't know when I'm going to be eligible. I'm on the last of the list. So like having these things open up, it's like, whoa, like let's go reappreciate what it feels like to go to the movies or eat
Yeah,
inside or even show my face at a store. So
right?
I'm
Yeah,
wondering if
what
you
do
have like
you
things to look forward to.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right, just the newness and things that we took for granted of like being in a crowd. I mean, being in a crowd outside is wild. When I saw you when you did your show, and I know it was like on in the patio area of Sycamore Den, but just that experience, I was like, okay, yeah, it's weird that we're like at these picnic tables and we like
Yeah,
had to go in with a mask, but the fact that we're like all here is such a cool thing. And it's like taking those baby steps to feel what it was like before. And I think I'm just looking forward to like, I mean, I'm so grateful that we can like use technology in ways like I know we're all zoomed out, but like having FaceTime and being able to do like Zoom birthdays and having access to Wi-Fi, like that's something we take for granted that is so great and has been such a way to connect. But like seeing our friends in person and giving them hugs and like maybe you want to lick their face consensually and vice versa.
maybe.
And going on trips um and just like having a story to tell at a party that doesn't have to do with you like baking a pie, that's like a story from being out in the world where you like didn't answer your phone for a few hours. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
You know?
It's just I've been doing I'm definitely like an introvert, so like the external lots of people and crowds and bars and stuff, like I don't necessarily need it. I like it in doses and I missed it. But just being able to do some solo things or things that just kind of basic, like eating out. I really like
Yeah.
that. Or going to the movies or being at a store where you're not waiting outside in the line, traveling, visiting family, museums, like all these activities, um, just outside of even being in a bar, which is a great experience too. Like don't get me wrong, I love to lose myself to really loud music and dance and be at a rock show and headbang, and it's like that has been gone for so long. So it's like being a part of that. I look forward to that, but I'm also excited to focus on my priorities and do the things in life that really bring me the most joy out of all of that. Um, instead of just kind of bumbling along like whatever I've been doing. The pandemic really made me stop and think and be like, what brings me the most joy out of all of this? And
Yeah.
how do I align myself towards that more?
I think it was, yeah, not only a great, not, it wasn't a great time, but it was like the situation as it was, like, allowed, I think, all of us to be better about like setting boundaries with people because we had to. And you could pull the like, that doesn't make me, that's not something I'm comfortable with card, whether it was or not, because it's like the art of
It's
saying
valid.
no was like everyone could do that, which is great. And so using that more, and then just like, yeah, being more intentional about the ways that you want to spend your time and looking ahead at like what you want your life to be. I think I felt that the same way too. Just, yeah, in the words of Kylie Jenner, I would say like the year of realizing stuff or whatever she said.
Yeah, and cutting out the noise. And I think being forced to be alone and not at work and with all these daily distractions of work, office, commute, party, this, that, people, we had to sit with ourselves.
Mhm.
And it definitely drove us crazy. But as an artist, also drove us to some cool things. And also hopefully rejuvenated just like reappreciation for things that we take advantage or take for granted in life, like seeing our family safely,
Mhm.
hugging people safely. So again, trying so hard to focus on the positive because there's a lot of other struggles that have come from this and the immense stress that we've been under almost every day, especially people who have lost their jobs, lost people they love, lost their lives, um, lost their kids at school. Now they're teaching them. There's been endless amounts of adaptation, but that in itself is beautiful, right?
Totally. And I think just the fact that we can look to those bright moments and people who helped each other out and the moments that we were able to like look out for other people are
Yeah.
reminders of like the good parts of not only this past year or so, but just like people in the world, because it can be, being online all day can be really discouraging. And like it's
Yeah.
like it makes you just feel like the world is a bad garbage fire. And like honestly, sometimes it is, but there can be really bright spots and good people who mean well out there. And I think it's important to remind ourselves of that and to show that to other people too, in little things. Like my roommates and I, at the beginning of the pandemic, we had one of our roommates who moved out had all these extra like hand sanitizer little things that were like miniatures. And we just decided to write little notes on them and like leave them in the mailboxes of our neighbors to just let them know like we
Aw.
had moved in like, 5 months prior, but like we're here and like this is a weird time and we know we can't really see you, but like if you ever need anything, here's our contact info and like some hand
Aw.
sanitizer. So,
That's so sweet.
which was, a nice thing. And I don't know, felt like it was a very small thing, but like we were at least doing something.
It's the small things that can make such a huge difference because as one person, that's where you can start, right? Like making a difference in your
Totally.
life or someone else's life. And those little things, interactions where people are depraved of human interactions, I'm sure speak
Totally.
volumes and mean so much more. Like it has brought people together too. Like, just it has brought people together in a way that we weren't doing before. And I see in a lot of my relationships that have remained that the relationships are stronger and more connected. We talk
Hmm.
more, and it's kind of been a good boost for people to remind each other like, hey, life is precious and you're precious to me, so let's talk, let's connect, let's FaceTime. So I mean, I think it's brought us closer together too. We got to do these wonderful FaceTimes that turned into this podcast of,
Totally.
we were
Like,
already texting a lot, but it just grew from there. Even though
yeah,
we live far away.
you never know what the pandemic might spark. And I think for a lot of people, like, especially folks who are older and like live alone, like
And don't have
who
technology
and
stuff.
don't have technology, or for all the like little, I mean, usually they have like their parents and hope and maybe a sibling, but like the kids who are like,
Trying
I'm
to
just a kid.
socialize for the
Yeah,
first time in their life
like, but
at
like you're not
kindergarten.
yeah, like you're not allowed to like hold that little kid's hand or whatever. It's like that's got to be just the weirdest.
Yeah, that's traumatizing. Everyone socially is being traumatized in some other way. And like you bump it up to teenagers and they're missing prom, their senior year, their last qualifying basketball season for scholarships. I mean, older people losing their jobs in early retirement or losing the job that maintain their family. It's just like
Yeah, or like missing your graduation.
so sad. Yeah. Yeah. I
It's
think
sad.
everybody has something and someone or something that they have lost. Multiple experiences, like you mentioned earlier about wanting this year 2020 to be like a year of good and healthy and new experiences for you that was taken. And even that is something that is, you know, important to grieve. But like, how do we do that, right?
I
One day
know.
at a time.
I think one day at a time and just, giving ourselves time to like reflect on it. And it's going to take a lot of time to process for all of us because we're still in it, but like also embracing all the bright spots and things to look forward to. And there's so much, I think, hope on the horizon.
And strengths that you've gotten out of this, because every single person who's gotten through this has gained a strength and has improved in some
Totally.
way. And I invite you to reflect on that for yourself, because we had to be tough and adapt in some way to get through this, and now that's a new superpower that we can use for the good. Whether
Yeah. We're basically like Avengers.
Yeah,
I mean, sort
I
of.
don't really know what they are. I think they're superheroes, right?
I think, yeah, they're
They
like
hang out.
yeah, they just avenge things.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, my bad.
What are your parting words on this day in June for our listeners?
Ah, you guys, we're getting through it. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, but we are not over. It's
Mm,
not completely over yet. And not everyone is vaccinated, and not everyone is comfortable or aware of what's really going on. And we got to continue to treat each other with kindness and patience wherever you go. Okay?
mhm.
Yeah. Okay, you don't have to wear a mask, but people want you to wear a mask. Like, let's pull in some consideration to that. And also do what you need to do to move forward in life, even if other people aren't approving of it. Do what you think is safe, be considerate, and let's start going to shows. Let's start putting money into the economy at local restaurants. Let's meet up and hang out and hug in real life if you're vaccinated. Because, like, damn, we've deserved it. We've been through some shit.
We do deserve it. And like, yeah, I don't really know what to say to people who can't get down with science, but I will say in general, just
Oop.
like, yeah, and
Oop.
I would say just like be considerate, like, um, and try to be someone that like looks out for each other and or looks out for other people. Don't be an asshole. I feel like that's a pretty basic thing that you should just know.
But a lot of people fuck that up in the
And maybe
last year and a half, as
I'm
we
not
all know.
sure if that, and I think that sort of advice is apparently very subjective. But, I think that those of us who are like on the same page, which I think is a lot of us, just remember this time, reflect on it. You've gotten stronger, more resilient. We all have. And like, yeah, just like we're here to help each other out and let's look ahead and think about these great new things on the horizon.
The
And
20s, man.
yeah,
The
it is going to be the
20s.
roaring 20s.
Let's roar it out.
Let's roar it out. Like you're going to hear me roar. The Lion King, the Lion Queens. And on that note, this has been episode 14. Someday we'll be recording and it won't be a pandemic, but for now, this is who we are and welcome.
And that's
Thank-
okay. And we're
Yeah,
not alone. We're doing our
no,
best, and we're so grateful that you're listening and hanging out with us. Yeah,
yeah. And
14 years old, man.
14, we're thriving. We're just coming through in junior high, and
Getting ready for high school.
we
Gonna
have
be
a
15.
we're gonna be 15. We're gonna have a quinceanera, and we will be going through our
Yay!
cabinets for more files because we have a lot to get through.
Yes, we do. We will see you in the cabinets.
See you in the cabinets.